In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to ease one pattern piece into another. So generally garments need eased in, and you'll be able to see this here. So we've got our neckline here, which is quite curved, but then we are going to be trying to fit in the collar stand, and this is for the Presley shirt. So they're obviously two very different shapes. It's the same when you come to easing in a sleeve head. You've got your sort of more shallower curves in the arm side and then the really steep curve in the sleeve head. So it's just trying to visualize where your stitching line is, so the actions, as opposed to matching up the edge of the fabric, you're imagining where your stitch line is going to be, and that's the area that you're trying to get to fit. So we will start with matching the center backs. So always start with matching the points that you know should match. So the likes of your notches, matching them, if you have a center front and a center back. So this same sort of technique would apply to a neckband on a jersey garment. So matching up your different areas that you know should fit together. So we have the front, the shoulder, and then the center back. So as you can see here, if you sort of, now because we have our stay stitching here to stabilize this, it should make it a little bit easier to ease it in. And I like to pin sort of roughly where my seam line is. If you find it could be easier to actually draw on your seam lines or your stitching lines, and then you know exactly where you're wanting it to match. So then when we get to the back here, you can see where this looks like it's not going to match. So what you want to do is go for the middle. So same way you would with a neckband, a jersey neckband, and get that to match. And then you're essentially trying to flatten this down here. So get it smooth here. Don't worry if the edges go wavy, that's completely normal. So you want to have this area sitting flat here, and then the same with this here. So this would be why I would always recommend, if you are, so you can see here, this side is completely flat, and then this is the side that needed eased in, and it's got these wee waves here. So that's where the edge of this piece is longer than where we're trying to fit it into. So it's naturally going to go sort of wavy, but as long as you can feel that down here where your stitching line is flat, then there shouldn't be any tucks. You also want to make sure, so for the likes of a sleeve head, I would always recommend doing your gathering stitches within the seam allowance, because then you don't end up with any tucks. It's only this edge here that you want to bring in a wee bit to give you the shape that you need. So then we'll go on ahead round and do this on the other side. So we're going two ends, then into the middle. We've got our notch here to match. Because we have our stay stitching here, it does give a nice guide for where we want them to match. So you're sort of using your thumbs here to flatten it as you go. And because we're easing this in, it's going to help give that really nice sort of rounded curved shape for the collar. And that's us. So now we will sew this in place. So as we are sewing this, the main thing to remember is that you keep your needle down. So when your sewing stops, or when you stop sewing yourself, just turn your needle, make sure it's left in the fabric. So you'll see here, as we're coming to here, where it's a wee bit bumpier, and there's a little tuck there starting, you can just lift your foot, your presser foot, and nudge that fabric out of the way. And then that means that you can avoid any tucks. So I'm just smoothing these sort of wavy bits over behind the stitching. I think I missed one. And that is us. There was one here I thought it got, but that'll actually just smooth out there. So once that's all pressed up and pressed in place, we will have no tucks and a nice rounded neckline. So as you can see here as well, this is the sleeve head, and on the sleeve side our seam, our fabric is going really wavy, but then on the bodice side, the arm side, it is a lot smoother. So you've got the same principle here. You don't want these edges to match. It's the 1 centimeter seam line that you want to make sure is matching. And then we have our collar, which is nice and rounded as well. So they either, if you're making the mandarin collar, you would just be sewing on your other collar stand here and then stitching it down, or we'll be attaching the collar piece onto this and then the other collar stand. So I hope you find some of those tips helpful. I think the main thing is to remember that you're sewing along your, or you're matching along your stitching line, as opposed to matching the edge of the fabrics here when you're trying to ease something in.